You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians network. Get our other shows at wearelibertarians.com.
I'm Ron Cenkush. I live in the northern part of the state, Osceola, Indiana, a small town off of South Bend, St. Joe County. I guess I'd like to start by asking, first time considering running for office? Everyone here? Anybody ever? Not you. You've ran before?
I've not run campaigns before.
Oh, you've ran campaigns? Okay. Let me just start this in a way that you probably wouldn't expect. We're not terribly successful. I don't know if you check the stats. We don't win very much. Okay? It's like the 500-pound gorilla in the room. No one really likes to talk about it, but every single person knows that it's true. So, you may or may not suffer the same fate. Just be prepared to suffer it. Okay? Don't overbuild your expectations to the point where you're depressed if you don't pull home a victory. That may sound like common sense or practical knowledge, but I actually know a couple of people who almost got into a depression or a funk after their campaigns. I'm not one of them. I was fine, trust me. But I know a couple of people that were, really thought they were going to win, pretty upset when they didn't pull home a victory. So, make sure you're invested in your campaign, but don't get to the point where it's an all or nothing proposition that you have to have that victory to go forward in life. There are plenty of things that make running as a libertarian for office worthwhile without actually winning a campaign, without actually winning an election. I mean, keep in mind that you get to spread these ideas around. I mean, we don't get people into our camp by the thousands. We get them. You don't get to 1,000 before you get to 50. Okay, you don't get to 10,000 before you get to 1,000. So every time we bring somebody in, we're closer, and your campaign can bring people in. Okay, so don't ever look at it like it's an all or nothing proposition. Like it's either a win or I didn't do my job. Okay, because you're doing a job no matter what, and you're getting us closer. At least people are hearing it. Okay, so at the end of the day, don't be too critical about your results. So, a little bit about myself and the campaign I ran. I've never ran for office before prior to 2010. I really only became involved with the Libertarian Party about 2009. I have 4 adult children who are all grown out of the house now. I'm a small business owner. I've owned my own company now for about 10 years, 12 years, I guess, maybe now. And when my children got older and starting the company, that's when I really started to open my eyes to what was going on in the government. Prior to that, I was way too busy coaching Little League and working for somebody else and, doing all the stuff that you do when you have 4 kids in school at the plays and the parent-teacher conferences, and I was trying to be a good parent. And I'm embarrassed to say I wasn't paying nearly the kind of attention to what was going on in the government as I should have. So I'm overzealously now trying to make up for my sins and doing all I possibly can to help for the years that I ignored it. Okay? And so I ran for office in 2010. I chose to run as state rep, and I challenged a 20-year incumbent Democrat in a heavy Democratic district. All right. I did not have a Republican challenger because they don't think they can win, so they didn't bother. Okay. The guy had raised $200,000 in the cycle before that for his election and crushed the Republican who ran prior to that, who raised about $50,000. Just crushed it. So they weren't even interested in putting anybody into the race. So I decided to take this guy on because I thought state rep was a job I could do and still continue to run my business. I thought if I could just find somebody to run it for those few months while I have to be in the state house, I could get back and take care of things, and it felt like a job that I could do. So that's what I went for, and I went and embraced everyone I possibly could. I reached out to Tea Party groups, I reached out to citizen action groups, and essentially ran a grassroots campaign. I raised $2,500, which is about $2,300 more than I thought I was going to raise, and I finished with 30% of the vote. There were about votes. About, technically 16,000 people came out to vote, per se. But only about 10,000, no, I said that wrong. That's 13,000 people came out to vote. Only about 10,000 actually counted because 3,000 people came in and pulled the Republican lever and left, which meant that they voted for a Republican candidate who wasn't there, so their vote didn't reach the final tally. So the winner got about 7,000 votes, I got about 3,000 votes, and the mysterious Republican, who wasn't even on the ballot, got as many votes as I did, which is one of the biggest reasons why we're trying to eliminate lever voting, and something that you'll have to face in your campaign. I chose to try to reach out to the Republicans because they didn't have a dog in the race, and I felt if you're a Republican, you live in that district, at least you believe, I hope, in our economic policies, and maybe that's enough to make a connection, and I've steered my campaign in that direction. You may have to do the opposite. If you're running against a Republican, for instance, and not a Democrat, you may have to steer your campaign towards civil liberty issues, towards anti-war, your state. So you know what I mean, though, to the side of the spectrum that's underserved. That's underserved, right. And so play to your strengths is the advice I have for that. The other thing the most important thing I wanted to tell you today concerns money for your election. I really did not want to ask people for money when I was running for office. And it may not be for the reasons you think. It wasn't because I didn't believe in what I was doing. It wasn't because the economy was bad. It was because I honestly felt like I had a very small chance of winning. And to be 100% honest with you, I had a tough time looking people in the eye and asking for their money in what I essentially knew was going to be a losing effort. And it was very difficult for me to do it. And so I didn't for a long period of time until the people who were advising me eventually beat it through my skull that I absolutely had to have some money, okay? And then I reluctantly started asking, and we had a couple of fundraisers and we made some money. But I didn't ask nearly soon enough, and I felt justified in what I was doing. It seemed right. But I have to tell you, folks, it was a mistake. It was the number one mistake I made. Even if you don't think you have a chance to win, it's not like the money won't be well served. It's not like the money won't get the message out, okay? And sadly, as sadly as the truth may be, you may have to run for office several times to get a victory. Okay, so your first go-around might be all about name recognition, making contacts, learning how to do it, taking a couple blows to the chin before you realize, what worked and what didn't the first time around. But you can build on that, okay? And you will need money to do something. There are all types of ways that traditionally people try, with yard signs, with direct mail, with media advertisement. Door-to-door is essential in a grassroots campaign. You cannot underestimate the value of it. I essentially will earn probably most of my votes by knocking on doors. And I believe that. We sent out a mailer to 1,200 Republicans that we believe were Republicans based on the demographic data we got. I got 4 responses. I got 1 donation. Okay, in a race where there wasn't a Republican, okay, with a message that was tailored to economics, right? With one that should have got something, got next to nothing. Okay, and we spent most of our money on that mailer, okay, and that and yard signs. I'm not sure how effective that was, but it was probably tremendously effective from a name recognition standpoint for building for the future. And so you shouldn't ever be afraid to ask folks for money, because you should believe in what you're doing. If you care enough to run for office, it's self-explanatory that you care about it. So if you care enough to do that, if you care enough to spread the message, don't be afraid to ask them for money. It was the number one horrible mistake I made, and it was my own pride and my own selfishness, I guess, or my, of believing that I wanted to do it my way that kept me from doing it. So I forgot, or I never learned that the folks that have been doing this for a long time have been down this road and have done it. And I should have listened to their advice, and I didn't. Okay, so that's the number one thing I could tell you. If you get a lot of people advising you should be doing something differently, no matter how stubborn you are, you might have to reconsider. Even though you're the candidate and it's your campaign, ultimately you will have the decision. I might beg to offer, if you get enough people telling you you're on the wrong track, you might want to reconsider. Okay, so this is supposed to be a roundtable, not so much my dissertation or discussion. So I'm just going to finish up with one more thing where I made another mistake. Make sure anything you put out has paid for by your committee name on it. And no matter how insignificant you think it is, if it's something you just printed up on your laser printer, even if no one did pay for it, you just used your own paper and your own printer, you got to put that on there to stay out of trouble. I didn't get in trouble for it, but I did put some stuff out that didn't have it on there, and one of my advisors found out about it. I was like, he's having a cow. And so if you do, like anything Chris said before, if you do make mistakes, correct it as quickly as you can, and that's what I did, and I never had any problem. But make sure that anything you put out has that paid for by your committee name on it, no matter how insignificant you think the handout or flyer may be.
That counts for printed materials. It doesn't count in Indiana for balloons or pencils or something like that. Okay. You don't have to pay.
So anything that's on paper.
Well, yeah. But Debbie O'Neill ran for mayor in Rushville last time, and she put this paid for and authorized by Debbie O'Neill, almost as big as her sign, or like as big as her balloon. And for small trinkets like that, it's not needed. Okay. But if it's a sign or a flyer of some sort, you need to put it on.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure you know that, so you stay out of trouble, because we certainly don't want you to be fined or to get in trouble when you do this. I mean, we would like you to be enlisted in the long haul. We'd like you to run for us again. We'd like you to be around. If you undertake this effort and you get $1,000 in fines, you may not be so likely to come back and try it again for us. So we want to keep you out of trouble. So let's open it up to discussion. Do you have any questions or comments or anything in general? Yes, sir.
Okay. Your district you said is primarily Democrat.
That's right.
My district is 89th district, which is a great division between the city of Beech Grove and Warren Township.
Okay.
That's a huge economic divide right there.
Okay.
Beech Grove is very conservative. There's no Catholic churches down there. North of Warren is it's seen better days. But how they vote is an economic divide. But every election it flip-flops. One year it's a Democrat, next year it's a Republican. And they're winning by 200 votes. Kirkhofer beat Barnes. 200 votes.
Okay.
Less than percentage.
So it's a really tough district. Now, did they redistrict it this time? Did they change it up?
Yeah, but what they redistricted to was they had the college campus, which is my college campus in the area, which is that's give or take. Even though it's a private school, it's college campus.
Right.
So that can go either way as well. But these votes are going, here and there, here and there, here and there, so it's 200 votes. So right now I don't know a Democrat style, because I don't think they really care about the state of the society. It's just going to continuously flop. She'll just win next time, we'll just throw someone else there. But she should be populist again as well. So in a state, not state, but district that's always, constantly flip-flopping like that.
Right.
It's who do I pander to, because it's this can go either way, who you talk to.
Well, I think, you're going to ultimately have to make the call. I mean, it's clearly your decision. Again, for advice on how to attack a district like that, pick what you feel is your strongest issue, perhaps. What you feel you're the best messenger of. You know what I mean? What you're passionate about, and try to own that issue. Try to be the champion of that issue, particularly if you feel that whichever candidate or side tries to champion that issue and falls short on it. You know what I mean? Try to own it for yourself, and try to get as many votes as you can on that issue, or maybe a couple of issues along those lines.
Because the issue is it's going to be an absolutist situation. You know what I mean? If you have the half the auditorium is Democratic, half the auditorium is Republican, and they're what's your position on right to work?
Yeah.
What you say, you're going to lose half the audience right there.
Well, it can. So don't champion that issue. In other words, if you ask that question, be prepared to give a response, but don't put that as the number one issue on your website or as the one that you're touting. You know what I mean? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. You're in a unique situation, and you need to tailor exactly what Ron was saying. Tailor your message to the people you're talking to. So if you're talking to a heavily Democrat group, or in the area that typically votes heavily Democrat, you're going to want to focus on the social issues. Whereas if you're in a Republican area, you're going to want to focus on economics. You're going to have a hard time getting votes because they're going to feel like, well, if I don't vote for the Republican, the Democrat's going to win, because it is always so close.
So you got to vote out of fear.
Yeah, you get a lot of, one of the things that your success in terms of vote total was because you were running in a two-way race, so people felt like they could, even if there was a Republican in the race, they would have felt more comfortable voting for him because they liked him more than the Republican, because they know essentially that the Democrat's going to win.
Yeah, I just want a situation where it's like I'm just whirlwinding with all these different people, you know what I mean? It's like, stop at one thing, it's like, yeah, referendum, the right to work. They go over here and it's like, yeah, zero excise taxes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because then you're just whirlwinding and so you're going to get caught up in that. Like,
don't contradict yourself.
Yeah,
no, that's not what we're saying.
Just be consistent, but tailor what you're saying.
And
There's certain issues, certain audiences want to.
Right. So when you give your speech to the Republican side, give your economic speech. Okay, talk about free markets. And particularly, like I said, try to champion an issue that you feel your opponent maybe gives lip service to but doesn't deliver on. If they have a voting record, call them out on that. Say, well, my opponent talks about free markets, but he voted this and this and this, and these are not free market principles. And if I get that office, I guarantee you, I'm going to deliver these free market principles.
The only thing I really like looking at her voting record was like a kick in the throat is like she signed several eminent domain bills.
Okay, there you go. Then it absolutely attack that as not a free market solution.
Yeah, which is like, because she ran on the aspect of like, it was like staying with Cindy, those were whole, campaigns.
Right.
Like, you staying with Cindy, it's for common sense government, smaller government. But she signed Citizens Gas. Like, Citizens Gas wouldn't build stuff here unless they got these eminent domain bills for the CO2 pipelines. So it's like, I can't get this corporation to build here unless I give it power to take property when it wants to do it. So they signed that into law, so it's 51. Like, everybody signed on to it to do it.
And if you take her on that and point that out, the free market people that would have voted Republican, are not going to like the fact that she's doing that, okay? And so you can own that issue. You can champion it. And you can also find something that the Democrat maybe would have tried to champion or whatever and also fell short on, especially if they have a voting record. If they come from another office, maybe they were a county councilman, check their voting record and see what they did and try to champion something on their side. And it's not that you flip-flop on the issues and you don't tell one crowd one thing and tell another. I mean, you have to answer the questions that they ask, and you have to be honest, you have to be consistent in your campaign, but you don't have to lead with them. And you can also do the classic bait and switch. I mean, I hate to say it, I hate it when other politicians do it, but people who are not versed in it don't pick up on it. So when they ask one question, especially if you know that you're not going to like their answer, say, well, that is an important question, but this wouldn't be an issue if we didn't have this problem, which is one of the things I'm trying to champion. So it's the old, oh, you're asking me about this? Thanks for asking that. Now let me tell you what I'm going to do about this. It's political sleight of hand, but listen, the masses out there are not going to pick up on that. You know what I'm saying? They get bamboozled by the old two parties with it constantly. So we have to be crafty when we deliver our messages the same way as they are.
It's kind of a unique situation as well because due to the right of work issue for Indiana, like the AFL-CIO is like full-blown, like let's just throw as much money as possible to Democrat candidates and to Democrat ideals at the time.
Sure.
So any Democrat function I'm going to go to is going to be heavily backed by the AFL-CIO. So it's like they know what the Libertarian platform is. They know what your market platform is.
Sure.
They know
exactly. And if they attack you on it, you could also point out that there's federal legislation that mandates that unions have to collectively bargain for employees that don't want to join the union. And you can point out that that's where the government failure is at the federal level, that that's against libertarian policies, that they should be staying out of all private contracting. And no, people shouldn't be forced to join a union if they don't want to be, but the union shouldn't be forced to collectively bargain for people.
Part of their group.
Right, and that's at the federal level.
I understand the point. I understand the
right.
talking point, but that's the exact same talking point the Republicans are sitting at as well. The exact same.
And you can have common ground with Republicans.
So
it's okay.
you don't have to be afraid to have common ground when they're on the right side. Okay, don't be afraid to be chiming in per se with the Republicans when they're on the right side, when they're on the liberty side of the issue. I mean, you can't be afraid to defend the principles that we stand for.
What percentage of people there are actually employees?
Beach Grove, not very many. It's actually very.
Because the whole thing is that it always gets, the union side always frames it as they're against the working man, right? Well, what's good for the union and what's good for the working man are not one and the same. There's a lot of stuff you can do research on. Henry had this economics in one lesson. There's a chapter in there about unions and collective bargaining. There's familiar with Mises.org website? Okay, Mises.org. If you go on there and you want to write it down, it's an essay. It's I don't know how long it is.
We have a union, but they're not private unions. We have the largest public sector union in the fire department, the police department, and they have the benefits of some like taxpayer.
Public and private unions are totally really different things.
Public unions can squeeze, it's like if you're not going to the public union because their money comes from taxes. It's like they'll increase your taxes to keep going along.
Right.
And since they're a public union, it's like the fire department, the police department. No politician wants to touch a police unit. Just being like, police are like, we're going to go on strike. Because they're going to melt down. Like, we have no more control. This is going to do whatever now. Or the fire department's like, we're not going to put out fires anymore. It's since the whole district told us right, then politicians would be like, okay, we have to stop it.
The only thing I'd say about that is you have to refer back to that chart that I think Jerry showed us, where 10 or 11% of the people are at each poll, and nothing you say is ever going to satisfy them all. You know what I mean? So when you're looking for the panacea or the golden goose or the Band-Aid, listen, if liberty doesn't resonate on some level, then we're not ever going to get them. There are statists in the world. What can I say? They exist. You and I are not going to change their mind. Ron Paul isn't going to change their mind.
This is one of those battleground districts.
Yes, that's right.
Very, very hard.
So you're split down the middle. You're going to have to put some thought into your campaign. Obviously you're going to tie together liberty. It's a chance to show people. I would probably go into a situation like that and say, listen, we switched this district back and forth from Democrat to Republican. And both of these parties and both of these platforms come to you with some issues that are correct. When are they correct? They're correct when they defend your individual liberty. Okay, it's either that both of these parties do part of that at times, but only one party is here to deliver it across the board. Okay, and that's how you sell yourself and differentiate yourself from them. Will it win you the election? I don't know, because you know what? There aren't a lot of people yet that really embrace liberty. That's one of the reasons we fail as well, and we can't ignore it. It's not just that they don't understand us, or they don't know us, or they don't trust us. There's still a good section of people out there who are scared shitless of liberty. We want nothing to do with it.
Well, in the argument, like I was going to say, there's an essay called The Theory of Collective Bargaining. What never gets brought up is essentially, what is there, like 8 to 10% of union workers, right? The unions always frame it as the unions and the working class are one and the same. Well, essentially the only real way to raise wages is to raise productivity. Okay, unions don't do that. They go negotiate, a lot of times higher than market wages. What does that do? You have to pay for it another way. So in essence, the artificially high wages that the unions get result in lower wages than normal in other industries that business may work with. So if they have a vendor that's a non-union, it may drive down what they're able to pay at a market rate because they're paying a higher rate here. So I would say do as much research as you can, because don't let it get framed as they're against those. What's good for the union? So it may not always necessarily be, and that may be to the detriment of the rest of the working class. But most people don't research it and don't think about it. And that's a point that never gets brought up. And too many people allow it to get framed as that has a moral high ground on some of those issues, and the reality is they don't. Sometimes they're doing things that are at the detriment of other people, but no one ever points it out. They just assume that they're right. They assume because the union laborers are working class, that what's good for union laborers is good for the rest of the working class.
Sometimes the argument has to simply be not what should government be doing about this issue, but why is government even in this issue? People sometimes look to their elected officials like they're the panacea, like they're the ones who are going to address and fix and do everything for them. But so often the issue shouldn't even be in the realm of government, and so none of the other parties are ever going to say that. Okay, because they all want the power one way or the other. Somebody has to be the guy who stands up and says, why are they even in this at all? Why are we making elected officials and making government business out of private things that should be handled privately?
It's like our school system.
I mean, I try to keep away from like union issues as much as possible. Like when I created my talking points, you know, I based it on like anarchism and socialistic principles. You know, I'm not even touching that aspect of because I'm for labor value. But instead of having arguments of
The whole state's wrong.
marriage, like removing the word marriage totally from the Constitution. You know?
Is it even in the Constitution?
In Indiana Constitution?
Oh, Indiana. Okay, yeah, okay. I'm going to say it's not in the federal, right?
In the state.
State.
Right, yeah, because it's state level, you're right.
Removing that, you know, getting rid of like excise, sales, and income tax. Not lowering it. Republicans are always lower taxes.
Right.
And I'm just going to bar all this, you know, like lowering drinking age, like removing seatbelt laws, you know, just all this heavy regulation through. So I'm just like, I see her talking points, I see her talking points. I'm not tackling the union issue. I'm saying, you know, screw them. And the other issues I promoted were like unicameral legislatures stop lobbying because Nebraska has a mixed legislature. It stops lobbying. That's the whole point of it. You can't pander House Democrats because Democrats are free. So, you know, citizens legislature, so if you get 5% of the Secretary of State, you're allowed the Citizens Congress to come together that 10 delegates to the Energy Congress. So a total rehaul of like the Indiana Constitution, just shackle down and reconstruct. That's what the mutual freedom is. You take what the old system is, you smash it down, you reconstruct it based on individual liberty only up. So it's basically rewriting the whole Indiana Constitution from the ground up.
Okay. So that's going to be like your number one campaign issue. You're gonna advocate for rewriting the whole Indiana Constitution.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a big chunk.
That's a big chunk.
I think you should narrow it down a little bit and be more localized.
Like, it's a little too like ballpark.
When you become the benevolent ruler of Indiana, you can tackle that.
Right.
But until then, you need to focus on who you're talking to. Just like he was mentioning, you know, your demographic is flip-flopping between Republican and Democrat. Focus on that. I'm steady liberty. Right. Let's have me.
I mean, that's what the unicameral legislature.
When you get in a debate in which you can use your ideology thoughts regarding rewriting the Constitution, fine, use it then. But when you're out trying to sell yourself, stay home.
Yeah, somebody once said, all politics
yes,
are
relatable.
local.
Good.
Somebody once said all politics are local. So if your message out to the voters is, changing the Indiana Constitution or whatever, people are going to say, well, how does that relate to me? Or how is that going to, what's the glue that connects that back to my day-to-day life or whatever? So you got to keep in mind that you're coming at, right now you're coming at a 90,000 foot level. There's nothing wrong with that. But your constituency is going to be down much closer to the ground, right? And so I would advise you to be aware of that. Okay. Now, although a libertarian campaign is the classic place to come in with even out of the norm ideas, or whatever should I say, extreme. I don't mean to call you that or that idea extremist, but it is compared to somebody saying I want to lower the tax rate by 1%. I mean, so in context it's extreme. I don't mean it as an insult. That's my point.
My big one, if I'm elected, is to totally revamp the education system. Not the Constitution, that's bigger than what I am. But I just totally want to do away with all administration and redo county to county. But I'm not going to walk up to grandma and tell her that. I'm going to try and relate to her one-on-one.
See, but like what I seen with that was like the unicameral stuff is when you watch the Indiana legislature, it's so gridlocked with how it's going. Like, the Democrats will consistently walk out, Republicans consistently just push bills through without any public discourse on it. So there's a lot of lobbying going on both sides. The AFL-CIO with the Democrats telling them to walk out, the corporate lobbyists telling the Republicans to push these bills through over and over and over again. I mean, not just the issue of right to work, but with the eminent domain bills that preceded that, and with that rate hikes they're putting on taxes as well. Like, those are all preceded by corporate interests.
Some of that gridlock's a good thing, though.
That's why this is the election for the Libertarians to really get out there and push liberty. It's because of that. I see it every day.
Right, and trying try to take that angle of saying, why is the government the mechanism to make, to rule in these areas? Why isn't private contract, handling these things?
I guess it's more like an anti-lobbyist stance, trying to prevent lobbying as much as possible.
Now, when we say unicameral House, you're talking about like not having a Senate, just having like a House of Representatives.
Nebraska has it where
is that right?
Yeah,
Do I understand that correctly?
Nebraska back in like the 50s was like there was an issue with people coming in and lobbying on both sides. Like House Democrats were totally different than Senate Democrats, so lobbyists would go to one to block a bill that's through. So nothing got passed in Nebraska, so they reformed it where it combined the House and the Senate into one legislature, so you couldn't cross.
To me, they'll just take. The battle will just go to one House instead of two. They're still going to draw the battle lines.
I think there's term limits with it too, so it kind of blockaded.
I am personally a fan of term limits now. Interestingly enough, I actually desperately wish that we didn't live in a society where we would actually need them, because technically we have the ability to term limit every single politician by going and voting them out of office. And a part of me says, isn't it a shame that another part of me wants term limits because people aren't smart enough to vote out the idiots that they keep reelecting? So I'm like torn really between the two. The purist of me says we don't need term limits; we already have them. It's called vote. It's called voting. But unfortunately, the reality is that we don't. What we don't have is an educated electorate. And sadly,
term limits are treatment for symptoms.
Exactly.
They're not
You're exactly right.
they're not fixing it.
So I even ran that on my platform in 2010. I talked about implementing term limits as one of my things, and then since then, I'm like changed my mind on it slightly. Not because I want people to stay in office forever. I want exactly the opposite of that.
I think it's necessary with super PAC situations.
Yeah.
Like when you have a super PAC that can sit there and just be like, here's millions and millions and millions of dollars.
So aren't they just going to buy the next guy?
Yeah, it's like I'll just buy an election.
Well, you just buy the next candidate. Getting one crook out of office just puts another one in.
And term limits also empower those that are unelected, because a lot of the staff stay around, especially when you have one person who essentially, let's say, I'm term limited, but I want my good buddy here to take my place. Oh, and by the way, he's going to have all of my staff
and all my connections
and all of my connections.
So good old boy.
So the people that worked for me and now work for him are the ones that are actually power brokers.
And you come back as an advisor.
Exactly.
Right.
And then
you have the appearance of change, but nothing changed.
Right.
Well, it did. It took the power away from the voters to actually make that change. And that's the danger that comes with term limiting.
Like a Jacksonian situation where like you're Andrew Jackson and you're just going to put in all your friends in every one of my cabinet positions because they're going to back me on every decision I'm going to make, no matter how ridiculous.
Well, and not only that, but the people that develop the relationships in that body are going to be the ones that are unelected, because they know that they're going to be there, because they're going to go from my staff to his staff to his staff to his staff. And I may only be able to serve 2 terms. He may only be able to serve 2 terms. He may only be able to serve 2. He may only be able to serve 2. But the people that worked for us served 8. Think about the relationships that you're able to create with that.
The kind of issues that I want to promote and to really work on for the next election are low hanging fruit, things that are easy for us to win arguments on. Something as simple as blue laws. It's
Oh yeah, I've thought about
wholesales
on Sundays,
we can't buy beer on Sundays. We can't buy a car on Sunday in Indiana. Those are some issues that we can win at the front door.
Here's how we did that in Georgia. We didn't talk about it from we want to make it happen. We talked about giving the locality the control to choose.
Right. Yeah, we want to make it. We all anytime we can be on the side of letting people have choices or be free. The slogan is basically going to be legalized freedom. You should be legal. You should be able to. If you want to make a transaction, do it.
Keep talking your stances, because if I'm the county next to you and I'm going to be promoting you also, I need to know where you stand.
Absolutely.
Here's the thing. Actually, that brings up a good point. If I may interrupt here, I'll be brief. We probably should try to brand our state rep candidates and our state senate candidates along similar lines, at least on one or maybe 2 issues. maybe not every issue works in your locality or whatever, but, for instance, I heard you mention something about taxes. Taxes is something well interested. In 2010, we sort of took this kind of attack on property tax. We chose to all sort of focus and gang up, and most of us chose to put that as one of our issues that we called that, like the most heinous of taxes, because you can't even really consistently own your own home or property as long as the government claims first claim the right to it. If you don't pay your property taxes, they snatch it from you. And we felt that was particularly heinous of all the taxes. And so I'm not suggesting that you guys do that in that issue, but we could hold a couple of summits or whatever, even teleconferences. We can get people on board, try to build and see if we can get a consensus. And that way, when we do statewide advertisement or outreach or whatever, we can say, look, we're the party of trying to do this issue, and we've got, James, right? And Jeremiah, and on board with this in your area or whatever, so we can kind of sort of build a coalition, I guess, not that we're all haphazard. And so I think there's some strength to that, and some repetition is good, and hearing it from more than one source. So I strongly suggest, and if I were running for State House this year, which I almost did before I got called to work on Gary Johnson's presidential campaign.
There's still time for you to get in.
No, I'm not going to get in. I can't do both. I couldn't hardly do my own campaign and still keep a job. There's no way in the world I can do both, trust me. So anyway, but I would highly suggest that you guys at least consider looking into that and seeing if you can get them into a consensus on an issue or two that you can all sort of run on across the state. I think it will help you in the long run. I think it'll help you all in the long run.
Some other things we got some really big mileage with last year, and something I'm going to make as part of my campaign is Indiana's Fourth Amendment with the no-knock warrant
absolutely,
issues,
yeah.
The Barnes versus State decision that came out, and I just wrote an angry letter about the government one day, sent it off to about 6 newspapers, and it went to some Gannett papers, and they wound up publishing my letter in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Right. It went all over the country, also talking about the Barnes versus State.
Well, like I said, I think you guys as candidates should decide with that, maybe hold a summit. And I'm sorry, I cut you off, sir, so please go ahead.
I was just going to say, you may already know this, as I understand some of these, no alcohol, no cars on Sundays, all that kind of stuff, kind of need to know who the real opposition is, because as I understand that, and a lot of this is like that, you have to kind of follow who's lobbying for those, and a lot of times it's basically the guys who have 10 car dealerships all across the city form a little cartel and go and say, hey, you know what, we kind of want a day off here, but we don't want, Jim's mom and pop auto dealer right here to sell cars and take away from our business on Sunday.
So keep it closed.
So I guess
it'll save us a day of labor.
Yeah.
You have to. So I guess but they want to close off competition. They want the small guys to be able to be open.
Right. So sell it as a competition.
So it's sold to the public as a religious. We want people drinking on Sundays. Well, really, it's because the 21st Amendment guys would not come to work on Sunday. Right. But they don't want the mom and pop liquor store down the store to take away from the business.
But you have Meyer and Marsh that would already be open anyway.
Yeah. So
that can sell.
So you kind of have to know who really is
who's in a grocery store. You have to sell it in one of those special, and you can only sell cold beer in a liquor store, and a liquor store can't sell soft drinks.
So you mix them right.
Yeah, so you can't mix them together.
Well, they found a way around the coalition as far as small businesses. In Indianapolis, where they made it to where you can only buy wine and beer from actual in-state breweries and wineries.
Right. Yeah, they have special exceptions that are carved out. I guess the point we're trying to make is that we don't want special interest.
Did you really?
And free markets, and that's an easy free markets issue for us to win.
Just didn't notice. He didn't know he was working on Sunday.
Consolidation thing. What I'm trying to say,
I don't know how you did that, and the earth didn't come to me.
Is we should allow.
Personally, that's an earth-shattering event.
I don't want the state of Indiana to tell everybody that they have to consolidate together. But if Knightstown and
that's even more hilarious.
everyone combined together, we're free to do that.
Here you go.
Oh, you're saying
Like, Lieutenant,
Yeah,
it's like,
if they want to,
okay,
do it, that's fine.
we have to we're walking up to the meeting. He's like,
Or combining
and I'm like, what do you mean?
administration.
It's still Saturday night, and he's like, it's free on a Sunday.
Did you feel like a criminal for the record?
I felt lucky as that.
You should. My point is, you shouldn't have felt like a criminal. You didn't do anything that harmed anyone, other than perhaps yourself. So right.
I think excise tax should be important because excise absolutely is more what we're in.
Right. I would like to get
And priceless.
I don't know how that's. I would say
Everything is free. At least, though, if you lived in the woods or under a bridge or whatever, you can avoid paying excise tax. You didn't buy anything. I mean, you got to own some land to be able to call your own to rest your head on it. And as long as there's a property tax, you have to have an income from year to year to pay that to keep that land. And that's where we really take exception.
Absolutely. And
That's a real violation.
in my area, they're already
Property rights should be maintained to life.
go to try for this location and that particular thing.
Locks and everything.
That's dangerous. Private property.
Absolutely. All property should be private.
Private property allows whatever private entity to own, like a bank to own your house. You know, the commercial property is what.
Right.
So
It'd be great to eliminate it, but
let's say
if we could eliminate property
the
taxes,
whole mortgage
actually,
situation where the main issue with private property,
then the more we
the bank can own your house
revenue,
and a huge amount of interest that you never see.
personally,
Like they have it on where it's like you'll pay this off until you're done to make your children
you haven't owned something,
we own
to consumption tax, I'm there.
I mean, they got sued.
Or consumption from productivity to consumption.
It's not taxes that are keeping it from.
Yeah, I would much rather consumption tax than banks have to do it.
Well, that is and it is true depending on how you look at it. I mean, first of all, nobody forces you into taking a mortgage. I mean, you do that at your own free will. Sign up
Have to provide.
So,
I don't want to take. We're committed to
you can always save your money and buy it with cash. I mean, you can rent or you can live under a bridge or by a stream or in a park or whatever you can, with a friend or whatever. So I mean, there's no one forcing you to do it. But yet, you own property. The state is saying that you must pay X amount of dollars every year to be the owner of that property. So you don't really own it. You're essentially renting it from the state at that point. You buy the shirt, you may pay sales tax on it the first time you buy it, but the rest of your life you own it.
So if they find savings
comes
in
up to your door and says, shirt tax day, throw some money back in the coffin or take the shirt away. So, I mean, why should property, if it's land, be any different? I mean, if you're purchasing it shouldn't be an annual taxing event.
Perhaps it should just be the tax from property should just go to like utility companies, solely of utility companies to pay off utility companies.
Because they literally can only they can fund their I think their gasoline
pipelines are where you
through their bill tax.
it's like
That's it.
you really have
They don't have
I mean, I can justify the tax saying that it strictly goes to utilities, so you don't pay utility bill.
We also, as a state, tell them that they have to
Well,
build
that's
roads.
actually a tax.
They have to
It's paying for a service.
We'll tell them that they have to build it to a state highway standard.
I can understand that.
And if you didn't pay it, you wouldn't take your home away from you, you just wouldn't have utilities. So you'd have to live, on a beach
If they, but your revenues like that,
I think like
there are certain things that obviously have to do education. But within that, we want to give them the ability
everything's zeroed out.
just like the people in Indianapolis now do in Washington, spend their money.
Somehow manage that you're going to zero out all these taxes.
We want to put
Spend $659 million
don't blink, but we have to go to the state.
Well, I mean that's where it comes into the classic: are we anarchists or are we libertarians? I mean that debate is alive within this party. There are some people in this party that are essentially pure anarchists that believe no taxation is just or justified or called for. We have others who say, look, I mean, we can have some taxation because some libertarians feel like government is good when it protects your rights, when it protects your individual rights, when it does what it's designed to do, and the costs of doing that is something. So some level of taxation may be appropriate, although it may be very, very small and represents like nothing of the taxation. So, I mean, that argument exists and lives inside this party, and I would never be the guy who would try to tell you that you have to be in one camp of that or another. I mean, I'm not a litmus test guy. You know, I mean, the point I always try to make is we're so far away from either of those situations right now that we might as well work as a team until we get close. And then if we have to divide and have an argument over the last half a mile, then we will. But we're millions of miles away from where we should be, so why not work together to get closer? And some people also, that's also an opinion that does not necessarily prevail inside this party, although I wish it did. There are some people that feel we need to advocate for 100% liberty positions today. We go from here to here overnight or nothing. And who am I to tell them they're wrong? I'm too libertarian to tell them they're wrong. I just disagree. I just think that we didn't get from here to here overnight. I don't think we're likely to get from here back overnight. I think it's going to take time, and we got to get people thinking our direction, or else we'll never get in power. Frankly. I'm sorry, let me go ahead and finish. Go ahead.
Kind of like Ron Paul's situation where he's like, these things will die tomorrow, and like FDA, all this stuff will just die by tomorrow. Like totally neglecting the fact that the entire Congress said it's going to prevent you from doing that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of that he could do by executive order. I think there's some of the stuff he could get rid of actually by but I'm not sure everything that he wants to get rid of he can do by executive order.
He can reduce their powers. And
well, anything that was created by executive.
That's right. He can certainly
rescind by executive order.
Go ahead, Jeremiah. I'm sorry.
Getting back to the mechanics of the actual campaign and paperwork that you had to file.
Yeah.
I understand the things we have to do with the state, but I've gotten, like, when I file my EIN number, I got some stuff from the IRS. Do you have filings with them that you have to do, or what?
No. Other than
year?
getting your EIN, I don't believe there's. To my knowledge, I'm not aware of anything else that my campaign had to do with federal at all. Okay. But I went through a litany of things for the state, and then I also even had the county calling me and say, well, you didn't file your courtesy copy. I said, well, if it's a courtesy copy, I didn't feel courteous. I mean, is it a law or is it not? I didn't mean to pick a bone or fight with them, but I mean, I don't understand the concept of a courtesy copy. Courtesy to who? For who, for what, and why? Right. I mean, if I have to come down there and do it, I will if you're going to throw me in jail. And if not, then guess what?
I'm not going to do it.
Get it from the state. I already filed with them.
Right. Well, it doesn't make sense for, Marion County, you'd have one county to do, but I would have three.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to do the courtesy, in my opinion.
And that's why they abolished it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank God.
You don't have to do that.
So, one small victory, right?
Right.
We're now that much closer to liberty.
My campaign doesn't have to file a tax return at the end of the year or pay taxes on any income or anything like that.
You don't have any income or employees.
Yeah, it changes, like, I think, if you have your employees or whatever.
You are technically a 727 under the tax code.
Okay.
Which is a jumbo jet, I think.
Yeah.
Small jumbo jet.
So what you're saying is like we should unify positions so it's not like an issue. Because Spangle over here is like a different libertarian than what I am. Like
Totally.
he's what's called like a libertarian right. That's his thing. I'm a libertarian left. Like,
Right.
there's two totally different economic functions here. And like some of these guys might be moderates. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
libertarian moderates. So like what he's going to argue for the libertarian party platform would just be something totally different than what I'm going to argue. I mean, like to him, like my argument is bad shit the same. It's like, are you on crack?
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
I think
You have to apply it to the voters.
Right.
That's a differentiation.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Spangle's not going to elect you.
Right.
Okay, and you're not going to get anything done unless you get elected, right? So that's his point.
Shouldn't be any consistency.
Well, listen, I'm not, first of all, I'm not the supreme ruler of the Libertarian Party, not even in Indiana, not even in my county. Okay, I may be the leader of the table now, but that's subject to change at any moment.
Here's a dungeon master.
Even if I were, I don't think I'd be in the mindset of dictating to you all how to run your campaigns.
Right, but
I'm merely making a suggestion that to build the party, to build our brand, to eventually get to greater success, I think it might be a good idea if we picked one, just maybe one or even two issues that we sort of kind of come to a consensus on across the entire state.
So is that advice that we should take, like you said earlier?
It's entirely up to you. Listen, I'm too libertarian to tell you what to do, man. Honest to God, and I'm like to the core libertarian that way. I'm not going to tell you how to run your campaign. I don't have the power to do it anyway, even if I wanted to. I mean, I may have plenty of advice for you, but at the end of the day, it's just advice. Okay? I mean, you're free to run it how you want.
You just want to make sure that you have your campaign organized in a way that's going to promote the Libertarian Party. Not, you don't. Last thing you want to do is embarrass the Libertarian Party, because you want to be able to promote your agenda the next time, 2 years from now. You still want to find 2 people that are on the SCC or county chairs that are willing to put them on the
That's a good point. And let me take it from there, if I could, and interrupt. If you convince your county chair that you're a good Libertarian candidate, and he vouches for you, and you convince another few people of the delegation, and they support you, and say, this is our guy, we want him to be our candidate, then you're probably going to win the party's nomination, okay, and you'll probably be the candidate. At that point in time, even if I were to greatly disagree with what you're doing personally, at that point in time, I'm not gonna go out of my way to come into your district and bad talk you or tell you to change your mind. But if you are very far away from where most of us are in this party, it's probably not, frankly, fair to either one of us to try to make a match out of it. That's all. Honestly. So that's the only thing I would say.
In the party is,
right?
Oh, that's beautiful. You spoke that perfect.
Okay.
If your tactics or your message is going to harm the efforts of other people, that's when we start to have a problem. It's not about message. It's about Greg Nolan, who's back there in the church, said one time, when people come up and ask him, why do you keep running for office even though you don't win? He said, it's because I'm building something for the next generation so my son or grandson can win as Libertarian. And that's the point. You're furthering the ball.
That's right.
And if you're not furthering the ball, then you're hurting the party by wearing a tuxedo shirt to a debate, or because you think that draws attention to you, then that's not something you want to do. You know what I mean? But if you're going to go out there and you're going to explain how we can have private roads, and you can do it in a way that is thoughtful, do it. You know what I mean? It's that's the difference. Is most people try to draw attention to themselves through wacky means, and that rarely works.
Yeah. What you're saying is, don't be a douche.
Right.
I think in a certain manner of speaking, that's exactly what he said.
In talking to you over the last 3 months, you're a very intelligent person, and you can create arguments and thoughts that are coherent and very thoughtful and smart. Tap into that, and don't worry about the 4chan mentality of trying to, you know what I mean? And that's all I have to say. I've run out of gas.
All right, hey, deadlines. All right, we're getting closer to deadlines.
Yeah.
We need to know deadlines.
Well, all of the deadlines are in that campaign manual, and I might add, in addition to that, you've got to get to know this gentleman right here. And if you're not the guy who's running your campaign, if you're fortunate enough to have somebody who's going to help you meet those deadlines, get him plugged into this guy. And let me tell you why. They print the manual, and then they vote to change the law, and it's not in the manual, and they change the deadlines, and if you went by the manual and missed it, it's your tough shit. How about that? I'm on camera cussing. Sorry about that. But essentially, that's the truth. This guy knows when they pull zingers like that, and he'll let you know, or he'll let his county chair know. So make sure that somehow you're plugged into our hierarchy, either via county chair who's going to know that information, or you got somebody on Chris's mail list who's sending out updates like that, because they're subject to change, and that really stinks.
In addition to sending out email blasts, I'm going to have a Facebook group for candidates, a secret Facebook group where we can swap information.
That's cool.
It's not organized?
Yeah, and okay. I was saying,
no problem.
So how do I get a county chair? I would like to have one.
Well, you know what I had to do when I was a candidate and didn't have a county chair? Guess what? I had to become the county chair. Okay? And so that's the way it works in the LP. You can sit around and gripe about the fact that you don't have your county organized, or you can organize it. I'm sorry. Listen, if you haven't picked up on it now, it's not like we have endless resources. Okay? We've got to build a party so we have better resources, so we make it better for people. So if your county's not organized, organize it, man.
It's like starting a religion in Hancock County, so it's going to be like.
I don't know how else to describe it.
Find 5 or 6 willing people.
Don't be afraid. I never ran for office before I ran in 2010. I just got so irritated and angry. I said, I don't care that I don't know how to do it. I'm just going to do it. And I did the same thing when I became a county chair. I had no idea. I wasn't groomed to be a county chair. I never went to school to be a county chair. No one told me. I just said, you know what, we need a county chair. I'm going to be. I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to do it.
Rob what?
Yeah.
Right.
This is like I don't think they would donate to the Libertarian Party.
But they do technically have a chairperson.
But you know, like Culver Military Academy, one of the alumni in Culver is the Wright brothers. Like they graduated.
I don't think they have.
You know, they're $1 billion interests. And like, they're always like, I'm a libertarian. This is how I vote. But do they even donate to the Libertarian
I
Party?
think they did at some time, right? But they don't.
You're talking about the Koch brothers?
Yeah.
As vice president.
Yeah, one of them ran in '80 as vice president.
Yeah,
That was the year that with Ed Clark.
They're not donating to us now, though.
To the party, no, but they do like to
To Cato and stuff like that. Yeah.
They do think tanks. They figured out that their money is, or they think that their money is better spent
Anybody from the state
influencing or pushing philosophy rather than putting it directly in the
Political party.
Because there's a lot of because there's a lot
every time we
of
get into one of these
infighting
so I filed
because of
It was
I
namely
did
Murray
this
Rothbard.
beginning of November, and then on like
Is the
January
reason the
7th, or something, the night back to my
Rebecca was telling me about this earlier, the story. And Rebecca's been around since the start of the LP in Indiana, if not the start of the LP period.
I just like
But in any case, she said that that's what happened. Those,
and then I believe every time we get into
there have
one of
been
these
a
periods,
couple of philosophical splits in the party where
that's the origination.
I don't know, like the radicals per se versus the pragmatists. I think that's the long-standing debate. The thing I told you about my view about how far away from where we should be, even though you and I may not necessarily agree on the final destination, we both know we're very far away.
It's the freedom train.
And I'm willing to work incrementally because I believe that's progress towards the goal, whereas other people, and I'm not telling them they're wrong, that's just their opinion, say no, that's wrong. We don't work incrementally. We got to go to the end zone for the touchdown today. And you know what? I'm too libertarian to tell them they're wrong. I just don't agree. And so there have been splits like that in the party, and one of those caused kind of like the Cato people to split off from the LP party. And there have been LP party. I mean, I haven't been around that long, but I've heard stories from people who have been in a long time. There have been LP national conventions where they're discussing stuff like what should be the policy of property rights on the moon and other various things that I swear to God
there used to be platform positions about space
that would make you
interstellar
shake your head. I mean, I no offense to who may be watching this who's a longtime LPer, but I'm new to the party and I wasn't around when those were the debates, so it's alien to me. But I'm just telling you that alien. It's no pun intended. But this is the kind of the evolution we've been through, and it has caused rifts, and it has caused people like the Koch brothers to say, I'm not donating to that party. They're talking about moon stuff when we need to be focusing on, liberty issues. So, we've been there.
Party's talking about moon stuff. I watched the
Republic. Yeah, New
I heard moon base.
That's right.
Apparently, moon base is where we're going. So,
luckily for us as state candidates, we don't have much jurisdiction over the moon.
A lot of libertarians may love to go to the moon. Most of them would advocate for private industry figuring out how to get us there and making money off of it and turning it into the free market.
Cato Institute, Rothbard, Coach.
You'll find out all the split and why they don't do it.
And when, I will say this: the people in Indiana. I mean, you're seeing a good representation of the Indiana LP in this room right here. Many of the folks are a lot like the rest of the folks in this room. They're, I think, pretty pragmatic. They're not absolutists that we got to go to the end zone run today. That was my initial exposure to the LP. I went to the national convention and saw the rest, the other side of the coin. He's laughing because he knows exactly what I'm getting at here. And it was a little bit of a shock to me, frankly. And I was in St. Louis, and I drove back here after the convention, and I did some soul searching, and I said to myself, if this isn't for me, this party aligns with what I believe philosophically. If this political party isn't right for me, there's nowhere else for me to go. I mean, where in the world am I going to go? I'm going to start the party of Ron Cenkush. I can pretty much tell you that isn't going to cut it. Okay, I know it's going nowhere. There's no other decent option for me. So I'm committed to bringing in more like-minded people and just overvoting the others.
There is an objectivist party that has 4 members.
Is that right? Yeah. They might be my perfect fit, but you know what? They're not going to get anybody elected.
As soon as they get ballot access,
right.
final talks.
That's right. So I mean, there's a balance of saying, look, I have to.
I doubt you're a
Yeah, we have to get together and get with people who are going to succeed. Also, otherwise we're just sitting around blowing smoke. Okay, we can sit around and have a philosophical discussion all day long, and you may win. But if we're not going to get a coalition and build power and get people elected into office and affect policy change, then it's all just talk. And I mean, I've talked enough. I've talked enough today. We need action, and we got to get action by winning voters, by winning influence, and you do that by leading with the issues that matter to them. And so when your issues don't match up with what you think theirs are, you've got to try to find the issues that you do match up with.
This would be like so most of the conversation is kind of bent on platform.
Right.
It's kind of like metaphysical.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
I'll try.
So here's something more real, like the candidate situation. Fundraising. All right. What qualifies as fundraising? Like, I have bands that I know that are able to host a show out of the Hoosier Dome, which is a place downtown Indianapolis, South Side. It's permissible for the bands to play there and to collect money, going like door cover charge like $5-7, and all the money goes to proceeds to a candidacy, with maybe like some of the money going to the house to pay for like the lights, electricity, stuff like that. Just to
certainly that's fine, but I think it probably at that point the question is, who does the donation come from? Is the band then donating the proceeds?
It should actually be a suggested donation at the door rather than a cover charge.
Yeah.
And then you would actually be forced to let people in for free. But you can have a suggested donation.
Or your band could also just make it. The band could charge a cover charge and then make a lump sum donation of $500 or
right,
because you have
$700 to your
I think that would be easier for you to suggest a donation. I mean, you can't track that by any means.
That's right.
But if you have the band put on the show, they give you the money, they pay, pay for the license, they just
and you get the profit.
Band donates the money.
That's right. Or more specifically, the individual members of the band.
Right.
Let's say they're all together.
Well, if they made enough, then you break it down.
Yes, and then each one gave $200 or whatever, right? And then you capture their name or whatever. Yes, and that's how you handle it. But certainly it's legal. It's just a matter of the semantics of how you put it.
And you can easily advertise it to promote. These people are having this band promoting this campaign, so that your name is still tied to it, and then you'll at the end of it, the money will still flow to your campaign.
Ultimately, you just have to make sure that the people who are the initial source of the money knows where the end source of the money is going. That's very important. They have to know in some way that it will go to you.
Because there's a guy that we know, he works at Jay Clyde's.
Which one? Oh, Todd?
Yeah, there's a guy named Todd who, a little crazy, he has like Ayn Rand tattooed all over his body. Like, he's just, like, face, quotes, stuff like that. That's just who he is. And he hosts shows here, and sometimes talks about moving to San Francisco, Portland, but that's just But he's a concert promoter. He promotes different hardcore shows around the area, which is in my district.
Okay.
I talked to him before, I talked about putting signs up in the bar, because that's okay, cool with them. That's about the show too. I'm like, you ever hold a benefit show and money goes to candidacy for the district? And he's like, yeah, we can definitely do that. Get 5-6 bands on the bill. And it's like, these bands usually bring in like 40, 50, 60 people, depending on what band it is and what the night it is. And like that's the second guy I talked about, getting the youth involved into volunteerism. And as long as these bands are there and like they're playing the music, collecting the donation money, then you can get like a message outreach to them, because the kids that go to these shows are not like the normal kids you see at the high school, and like the hoodies, and it's normal life. Right. They're heavily pierced, heavily tatted young kids. They're very they're very anarchist, very left wing. You know what I mean? So they're very into, I want to do what I want. You shouldn't stop me from doing what I want. So like they'll fall in line with this philosophy, like this party, just on the merits of I like to do what I want to smoke pot without being in trouble for it. I should be able to do that. I hate that I can't drink till I'm 21. I hate that I might go to war sometime. They hate all those ideas. They might not agree with the economic side, because that's young kids, what they believe at the time. Like, oh, it's unfair that poor people are
So they hate the state when it tells them what to do, but they love the state
when it pays for their education.
It's anarchist socialism.
It's really a kind of anarchist is absence of the state. Socialism is virtually the whole.
Right.
So
it's very
a little mixed up. They don't know what they're talking about.
They're not.
They're like the opposite of the Libertarian Party. They're like,
you're not intelligent.
they're ultra left on the economic scale, but ultra right on the socialist scale. Kind of, you know what I mean? It's like I don't want to do it because I'm right. Because there's those straight edge kids as well. They promote a very ideological, like if you're not like me,
I like free
you're
stuff
done.
too.
But but there's a point that there are kids that
If you host,
aspects.
that event,
There's a very old saying that says, I think it was, if you're not a liberal at 20 and you're not a conservative at 40, then you haven't lived life, or whatever. And I would define it. I would rephrase it, and I would say, if you're a liberal at 20 and not maybe a conservative at 30 and not libertarian by 40, you're not being contentious. You're not learning anything. Okay, because sure, it's natural for the kids. I mean, they've been provided to them their whole life. Their parents have been taking care of them. They don't understand economics. I hate to say it. It's not an insult. I don't understand how to fix an engine. You know why? Because I've never been taught, and I don't know what I've been taught. And when I need one fixed, I got to pay somebody to fix mine. It's not an insult. But, I mean, when you haven't been involved in economics, you haven't been taught anything about it, you don't understand. And if you don't, then how would you even make that?
I want to thank everybody for coming today. First and foremost, I want to thank Jerry Titus for putting this together.
Beth Dunsig had a great deal to do with it. She's not here. You see her, thank her.
This is the second training session we've done. The first one was shortly after I was hired, and by far, and actually Ryan is our only returning presenter, and just even in Ryan's presentation, the training I think was a lot more detailed and more in depth, and you can see that past one and watch the new one. I really was impressed with all the speakers today. You guys did a great job. I want to thank Ryan. I want to thank Rebecca and Mike and Ron for participating in the roundtable. I want to thank Kelly. He did a great job. So a big thank you to our presenters for coming up and speaking. I want to say if you found value in this, please consider filling out one of those yellow cards or donating to the LPIN online so we can do more of these around the state for more candidates and train more people. The goal is to continue to do this over and over. We have a donation jar over there, and you have the yellow cards. That's what your contributions to the LPIN go towards. It's collecting this information and then presenting it to new people so we can continue to grow as an organization and win elections. So I want to thank you all for being here. Wish you good luck. Hope you got some good contacts to talk to people. I think we're going to dinner. Jerry, you want to give details on dinner? But first and foremost, thank you everybody for your time today.
Again, thank you all for making the trip. I know some people drove some considerable distance. I appreciate it. All of my staff. Beth's not here. Beth was critical in finding location, getting it reserved, and helping get it organized. So big thanks to her, and if you see her, thank her for me as well, if you would. Ron, of course Chris, Sam, Rebecca, Ryan, Joyce, Mike Cole came up. I'm going to introduce Mike Cole. Mike Cole ran for Secretary of State. Came up to the roundtable. Kelly McKinney, thank you. Very good presentation, I'm told. And all of you, I hope that we addressed some of your questions and gave you some information where to find out some more information. Like I said, I'll be adding you all to our Facebook group, 2012 Candidates, where you can get more information. And you're on my email list, and once we get our Tuesday meetings set up again, probably about 2 weeks, I'll send you information. We'll set up a agenda going forward where you can come to what you think you need, or you can send me an email. You need questions, or Chris, questions about anything specific, and we'll help you out best we can. Again, thank you very much, and we'll see you around.